Vladimir Putin has openly declared that we are witnessing the end of an era marked by American hegemony, a period during which Washington dictated the rules of the global game without significant opposition. That time now appears to be over, and with Donald Trump's arrival in the White House, new dynamics could come into play. Trump's recent inauguration has been accompanied by a flurry of declarations, sparking both hopes and controversies. Among the central topics is the Ukrainian issue, and Putin, in his remarks, sought to respond to these ultimatums and proposals by clarifying Russia's position while highlighting the flaws and contradictions of past and current Western policies. First and foremost, Putin stressed that Russia has never, at any point, refused to engage in contact with the United States. He emphasized that it was not Russia, but rather the previous Washington administration that severed ties and refused bilateral exchanges. According to him, this shutdown only worsened tensions between the two powers. Despite this, he stated that during Trump's first term, he maintained professional relations with the U.S. president, relationships he described as pragmatic and even marked by a certain trust. He distinguished this type of rapport from a friendship, noting that it was based on mutual respect and an understanding of both countries' interests. Putin went further to suggest that if Donald Trump had won the 2020 presidential election, the Ukrainian crisis of 2022 might have been avoided. He explained this hypothesis by pointing out that Trump, despite some questionable decisions, is characterized by a pragmatic view of international affairs. This pragmatism, Putin argued, would have led Trump to manage the tensions in Eastern Europe differently, seeking more to stabilize the region than to escalate conflicts. However, he did not ignore the fact that during his first term, Trump had introduced a record number of sanctions against Russia. These sanctions, which at the time were the toughest measures ever imposed on Moscow, were a major point of contention. Nonetheless, Putin believes that these decisions, while not serving Russia's interests, also failed to favor those of the United States. He considers that this policy of sanctions, which was continued and even intensified under the Biden administration, proved deeply counterproductive. He emphasized that the original goal of these sanctions, weakening the Russian economy, had significant side effects on the American economy itself, as well as on global economic stability. A striking example cited by Putin was the prohibition against Russia using the dollar as an international exchange currency. While this decision aimed to isolate Russia, it had the opposite effect, accelerating the erosion of the dollar's power on the global stage. Moscow, forced to turn away from the dollar, explored new alternatives, weakening the dollar's position as the dominant currency in global trade. Putin stressed that these policies caused significant harm not only to Russia, but also to the United States. He argued that such harmful decisions, taken under the guise of protecting American interests, actually led to opposite outcomes. This, he said, illustrates a concerning trend where short-term decisions compromise long-term balances. He particularly criticized the Biden administration for following this path, imposing a series of new restrictions without fully assessing their economic and geopolitical consequences. On the Ukrainian issue, Vladimir Putin reiterated that Russia remains open to negotiations. However, he explained that the current situation makes such discussions extremely complex, if not impossible. He mentioned a decree issued by the current Ukrainian president that officially prohibits any negotiations with Moscow. This decree, according to Putin, represents a major legal obstacle to any attempt at serious dialogue. He stated that, under the current legal framework, engaging in formal discussions despite this decree could render any resulting agreements illegitimate. This would not only pose problems for the involved parties, but also compromise the credibility of any future agreement. He also pointed out the role of Ukraine's Western supporters, who continue to inject hundreds of billions of dollars into the Ukrainian economy. According to Putin, while these funds are substantial, they are not accompanied by sufficient pressure on Kyiv to lift the decree prohibiting negotiations. Using a familiar expression, he described how these funds are devoured with appetite by the Ukrainian regime without leading to concrete progress on the diplomatic front. However, he speculated that these financial backers would eventually force Kyiv to change its position, as resuming negotiations could also serve their strategic interests. Putin then broadened his remarks to address global economic issues linking Russia and the United States. He reminded everyone that both countries, along with Saudi Arabia, are among the world's largest energy producers, particularly of oil. But he also emphasized an important fact. These three nations are not just major exporters, but also significant consumers. This dual position makes their economies particularly sensitive to energy price fluctuations. Putin explained that prices that are too high harm domestic industries by increasing costs and reducing competitiveness. On the other hand, prices that are too low weaken energy companies' investment capacities, potentially slowing innovation and long-term production. These issues, according to Putin, represent a unique opportunity for constructive dialogue between Moscow and Washington. Both countries, facing similar challenges, have every interest in collaborating to ensure price stability in the global energy market. Such cooperation could not only benefit their respective economies, but also contribute to greater global economic stability. Finally, Putin concluded by reflecting on Donald Trump's personality, describing him as an intelligent and pragmatic man. He believes that Trump, unlike other leaders, is guided primarily by U.S. interests. This approach, while sometimes conflicting with Russian interests, also opens the door to discussions based on mutual respect and a search for compromise. Putin expressed hope that this pragmatism, combined with a willingness to engage in dialogue, could enable the two countries to move forward on issues of shared interest. In summary, Vladimir Putin reaffirmed that Russia is ready to engage in discussions on all major topics, whether it be strategic stability, energy, or geopolitics. However, he made it clear that the initiative to resume this dialogue depends primarily on the decisions and will of the current U.S. administration. Until a clear signal comes from Washington, Moscow will continue to firmly defend its interests while remaining open to mutually beneficial cooperation.